two men dared to defy the impossible. They plotted, they schemed, and against all odds, they escaped from the most brutal supermax in America. But escaping this prison was just the beginning. Beyond the prison walls lies the unforgiving Mississippi Delta, where the sweltering heat and relentless mosquitoes are as deadly as the guards. And even if they survive that, a dangerous cross-country manhunt awaits, poised to turn deadly at any moment. Can these prisoners slip through the cracks of a prison designed to be escape-proof, survive the Delta, and outrun the law? This is a story full of relentless determination, unimaginable risks, and a fight for freedom that defies all expectations. The Mississippi Delta, stretching 200 miles from north to south, with a width that spans 87 miles at its widest point. But within this vast expanse of marshy floodplain lies something far more sinister: the Mississippi State Penitentiary, or as it's more infamously known, Parchman. The oldest prison in Mississippi, Parchman's roots are deeply entwined with the dark history of the South. In 1901, the state purchased what was once a farm, a place where black men, ensnared in an exploitative work program, were forced to build their own prison, a prison that would soon become a living nightmare. Parchman, a name that sends chills down the spine, is notorious for its horrors: prisoner murders, suicides, rusted pipes, sewage leaks, and infestations of rodents and insects. It's a place where hope goes to die. The prison, spread over 18,000 acres of former farmland, is known as the prison without walls. The Delta itself is a natural prison, a marshy, heat-ridden trap where the thick mud stops you in your tracks and mosquitoes, large enough and could even eat a person alive within a day. For the 2,500 inmates within its boundaries, escape isn't just difficult, it's nearly impossible. The prison is fortified with layers of razor wire fencing, armed guard towers, and deadly automatic firepower, day and night. And at the heart of this fortress lies the most infamous of all, Supermax Unit 32. Unit 32 isn't just a prison. It's a relentless assault on human decency, an unhygienic, violent, and diseased hellhole where nightmares are reality. Here, rapes and stabbings are nightly occurrences, and those with psychological problems only add to the chaos. This unit houses the worst of the worst: murderers, psychopaths, and high-threat escape risks. It's surrounded by a double-fenced kill zone, with guard towers given shoot-to-kill orders, circling day and night. The walls of Unit 32 are built to crush any thought of escape. Precast calls, the guards, the kill zone, all of it was a dare he couldn't resist. Roy Harper, a man whose story reads like a Southern Gothic novel, wasn't just a prisoner. He was a thinker, a genius, a man with a detailed, keen mind who had already broken out of an Arizona prison in 1981. Harper was no ordinary inmate. Arrested for armed robbery in 1982, he was given the equivalent of a death sentence minus 88 years without parole. But he got caught, and as a result, he was subjected to the worst types of torture by prison guards. But despite all of that, it only made Harper more determined to escape. The Delta was his enemy, and the Supermax window was his first challenge. A window fortified with steel bars, a cut-proof grate, and a steel frame securing 6 panels of tempered glass. But Harper was a man who learned from his mistakes. He knew that he will need money, tools, and most importantly, a plan. In the dark world of Parchman, corruption was rampant. With $40, Harper bought himself hacksaw blades from a guard. But to unscrew the bolts covering the window, he needed something more: a handle to get leverage, all while avoiding the eyes of a guard just 20 feet away. Improvisation was Harper's specialty. He broke off pieces of angled iron from a light fixture and, with pencil sharpener blades, crafted a makeshift wrench. It worked. Harper was making progress. But in Unit 32, nothing is ever simple. Just when it seemed he was on track, a new neighbor moved in. a convicted murderer and escape artist by the name of John Woolard. Woolard was dangerous, unpredictable, and had a reputation even more notorious than Harper's. With Woolard next door, everything Harper had worked for was at risk. The guards would be on high alert. A single misstep by Woolard could lead to a shakedown of the entire tier, including Harper's cell. But Harper wasn't just a thinker, he was a strategist. If he wanted to keep his plan alive, he realized that he needed to recruit Woolard and add it to the plan. Yard time. It was the only chance they had to speak without walls or bars between them. For prisoners in Unit 32, this single hour outside their cells could mean everything. However, Harper told Woolard everything, and Woolard, without any hesitation, immediately agreed, and from there plan began to take shape. A two-man escape team always increases the risk. More eyes, more opportunities to be caught. But Harper, ever the strategist, knew that the benefits outweighed the dangers. If they made it outside, another set of hands could be the difference between freedom and a swift return to the hell they were trying to leave behind. Every day, they met in the yard, each conversation meticulously focused on their plan. Stage 1, get through the window. Stage 2, cross the prison yard and breach the outer fence. Stage 3, escape the Delta and leave Mississippi behind forever. Each stage required meticulous preparation and a fair amount of luck, especially the part where they'd have to cross the yard. Their first stroke of luck was their cell placement on the first floor. Once through the windows, the plan was to move along a strip of shadow that clung to the walls of C Block. But the real challenge was a razor wire fence. Cutting through it with hacksaws would be a gamble, one where a single mistake could mean death. Roy Harper was no stranger to breaking out of prisons, but even he had to admit that this time, the stakes were higher than ever. Finding a weakness in Unit 32 had taken time. Weeks of careful observation, testing, and planning. He knew the risks were astronomical, but Harper wasn't just any prisoner. He was a man who calculated a makeshift wrench that would give them the leverage they needed. But just as Harper was making progress, he heard the voice of the director of Unit 32, making an unscheduled and unexpected inspection tour. Caught in the act, Harper's heart pounded. The window cover was off, and the hacksaw was in his hand. He was a second away from being caught red-handed. But Harper, ever the quick thinker, stepped up to the warden with a confident smile, hoping to distract him long enough for the danger to pass. Sometimes, luck favors the bold. The warden, distracted by other raucous inmates, moved on without noticing the missing window cover. The next day, they were back at it, but Harper quickly realized that they had hit another wall. Literally, the window frame and its mechanism were made of reinforced cut-proof steel. The hacksaws were useless against it. This new setback was a blow, but Harper wasn't one to give up easily. He searched for another way, and soon he found it. He found that the seam of the window box looked different, like it might be made of a softer metal. Harper tested his theory. It released the window louvers. With this mechanism disengaged, they could remove the louvers without cutting through the steel frame. Stage 1 was finally complete. They had conquered the Supermax window, but they couldn't just crawl out in broad daylight. Harper came up with his own brand of spackle to cover the cut marks, buying them time until they could make their move. The night they had been waiting for arrived, hot, humid, and filled with tension. Harper and Woolard synchronized their escape down to the minute. Midnight. The last cell check. It was now or never. They hung sheets over their cells, changed into their death row jumpsuits, and prepared dummies in their beds to fool the guards for as long as possible. Finally, they tossed their supplies out the window and prepared to follow. Once outside, they sawed through the chain-link fence. The guard tower didn't see them. They slipped into the kill zone, cutting through the second fence when suddenly, a blinding light hit them. Caught in the headlights, it seemed like the end was near. But in another twist of fate, the patrol vehicle passed them by. With one final push, they cleared the second fence and found themselves outside Unit 32. But their escape was far from over. Stage 3 awaited them, getting out of the Delta and as far away from Mississippi as possible. They had until dawn to disappear, so they ran into the night as the darkness was their only ally. But in Parchman, nothing is ever that simple. At daybreak, Harper and Woolard were already miles into the hot, unforgiving Delta. The Mississippi sun was beginning its relentless climb, turning the vast, flat landscape into a glaring, inescapable spotlight. They knew they were exposed, vulnerable to any search party that might be on their trail. The Delta's flat expanse offered no cover, and they were painfully aware of how easy it would be for anyone to spot two figures moving across the terrain. Desperation began to creep in. They had to find shelter, anything to break the line of sight and avoid detection as the sun's rays intensified the day. Back at Unit 32, the guards were none the wiser. The dummies Harper and Woolard had left behind had done their job well. It wasn't until hours after sunrise that anyone noticed something was amiss. A routine breakfast delivery sparked the first suspicion. Harper's tray, untouched, raised a red flag. A guard, puzzled by this unusual behavior, took a closer look and soon realized the horrifying truth. Harper and Woolard were gone. Panic set in as the alarm was raised. The prison erupted into chaos as a team of riot guards burst into Harper's cell, only to find his decoy lying in the bed and a gaping hole where the window had been. The breakout window told the whole story. Harper and Woolard had slipped through the cracks of the seemingly impenetrable Unit 32. Lockdown was immediate. The prison walls echoed with the clamor of boots and the blaring of sirens. Harper and Woolard had gained a precious 12-hour head start, a gift that few escapees ever received. The race was on, but they knew the clock was ticking. The first 24 hours of any escape were crucial. Most fugitives were caught within this window, as authorities scrambled to contain the situation before it spiraled out of control. The FBI was quickly notified. Electronic communications were sent to field offices across the country. Harper and Woolard were now fugitives at large, and the manhunt was expanding far beyond Mississippi. But even with their head start, the duo knew they were far from safe. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, they slogged through the thick, muddy Delta. The oppressive humidity made every step a struggle, while swarms of mosquitoes descended on them, relentless in their assault. The heat was stifling, the air thick with the smell of decay and stagnation. They pushed forward, knowing that stopping could mean capture or worse. They tried to stay as still and quiet as possible, using the cover of the dense vegetation to shield themselves from prying eyes. But even in the relative safety of their hiding spot, the Delta was an unforgiving enemy. The mosquitoes were enormous, their bites turning every inch of exposed skin into a swollen, itching mess. It was like nature itself was conspiring against them. Then, over the incessant buzzing of the mosquitoes, they heard it. Voices, distant but unmistakable. A search party was nearby. Harper and Woolard froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew that any sound, any movement could give them away. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they waited, listening intently for any sign that they had been discovered. But luck, it seemed, was still on their side. The voices eventually faded, and the search party moved on, unaware of how close they had come. For a week, Harper and Woolard remained hidden, moving under the cover of darkness, surviving on the meager supplies they had brought with them. Every step was a calculated risk, every decision a matter of life and death. Their journey eventually led them to the small town of Webb, Mississippi, a sleepy, rural community where they could blend in, if only for a short while. They found a house on the outskirts, isolated enough to offer them some privacy but close enough to town for what they needed. Harper and Woolard hunkered down, watching the house, waiting for the right moment to make their move. It was Sunday, church time. The streets were quiet, and the old couple who lived in the house had just left for the morning service. Harper and Woolard knew this was their chance. They needed a car, and this one would do just fine. While they waited for the couple to return, they raided the house, their hunger driving them to the kitchen where they devoured anything they could find. The fridge and cupboards were emptied as they stuffed themselves, finally sating the gnawing hunger that had been with them since their escape. But it wasn't just food they found. In the pantry, they discovered something that could change the game entirely: an arsenal of weapons, pistols, shotguns, boxes of ammunition. It was a treasure trove of firepower that made Harper and Woolard feel invincible. They quickly armed themselves, ready for whatever might come next. When they heard the couple's car pull into the driveway, they knew it was time. Harper and Woolard took up positions inside the house, shotguns at the ready. As the elderly couple walked towards the kitchen door, oblivious to the danger waiting for them, Harper and Woolard prepared to make their move. The couple was in for the shock of their lives. But Harper, ever the strategist, kept his cool. He assured them they wouldn't be harmed if they cooperated. All they wanted was the car. Terrified, the couple complied, handing over the keys without a struggle. Harper and Woolard tied them up to prevent them from raising the alarm too soon, and then they were gone, driving off in their newly acquired vehicle. With a car and a change of clothes, Harper and Woolard were finally free, or so they thought. They had managed to do what most escapees couldn't: survive the first day on the run. Mississippi was behind them, and the open road stretched out ahead. They just had to disappear, slip into the vastness of the country, and stay one step ahead of the law. But their freedom was short-lived. When the police rescued the elderly couple hours later, they learned exactly what car Harper and Woolard were driving. The hunt was on, and the question now was, where had they gone? Law enforcement across multiple states was alerted. Harper and Woolard headed north, making their way through Arkansas with the goal of reaching West Virginia. But Harper, the smart guy as always, knew they couldn't stay in the same vehicle for long. The Chevy Caprice was now a marked car, and they needed to switch it out before they were caught. No trace behind. But as they would soon find out, luck has a way of running out. Harper and Woolard, always thinking a step ahead, knew their stolen brown van was a ticking time bomb. They needed to make it disappear. With a few cans of blue paint and some stolen plates, they transformed the vehicle into something unrecognizable, hoping this quick disguise would throw off any pursuit. They turned their sights west, heading into Indiana. But what they couldn't disguise was Woolard's impulsiveness, a trait that was about to become their undoing. Speeding down the highway, Woolard's heavy foot on the gas caught the attention of an Indiana state trooper. It was a mistake, a stupid, reckless mistake. For all their planning, all their careful moves, it was something as simple as a speeding ticket that put them back on law enforcement's radar. Officer Raymond Coleman, sensing something off, approached the van with caution. But before he could even get close, Woolard fired a shot. The bullet missed its mark, but the recoil sent Woolard reeling backward, giving the officer just enough time to call for backup. And just like that, the chase was on. Harper, never one to go down without a fight, leaned out the window and opened fire. This was no ordinary traffic stop. It had escalated into a full-blown gun battle on the open road. The stakes couldn't be higher. They were both convicted violent felons, now locked in a deadly race against time and the law. As the chase hurtled down the interstate, officers deployed a spike strip, a last-ditch effort to bring the van to a halt. The spikes did their job, shredding the tires and sending the van skidding off the road in a shower of sparks. It careened into a truck stop, tires blown, and Harper and Woolard were suddenly cornered. It was a standoff. The van, now crippled, became their fortress. Harper's quick thinking turned what should have been their downfall into a temporary stronghold. The clothing and luggage they'd packed into the van absorbed the officers' pistol rounds, making it near. During the chaos, with sirens wailing and officers closing in, Harper and Woolard made their move. They kicked open the van doors and, in a hail of gunfire, dashed into the night. The officers, caught off guard, could only watch as the two fugitives melted into the shadows, disappearing into the Indiana darkness. For the next 2 days, Harper and Woolard evaded capture, slipping through the fingers of law enforcement at every turn. The small towns of rural Indiana were on high alert, the locals wary of every shadow, every rustle in the bushes. But Harper and Woolard, desperate and determined, knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Running on empty, both in supplies and in spirit, they ventured out of the woods, searching for food and water. The Delta had been brutal, but now the cold, unfamiliar terrain of Indiana was proving to be just as brutish. Their luck had carried them this far, but as they trudged through the underbrush, they both knew that luck could only last so long. In the end, the luck streak runs out. Emerging from the woods, trying to blend into the sleepy town of Street John, Indiana, they came face to face with an officer named Tortorillo who was heading one of the patrols. It was a chance encounter, but in their line of work, chance can be as deadly as a bullet. Tortorillo had never needed to draw his weapon in all his years on the force, but as he saw the two men approaching, he knew these weren't just any fugitives. They were the ones every cop in the Midwest had been warned about: dangerous, armed, and desperate. He kept close to the cover of his car, standing with the door open, ready for what might happen next. The fugitives were only 5 feet gun. Woolard, always the more impulsive, and the officer. Harper, the strategist, placed his hands on the front fender, considering his options, calculating the odds. But before Tortorillo could secure them, Woolard made his move, bolting without warning. Harper saw it coming, predicting the shift in Woolard's stance. His hand slipped off the fender as Woolard dashed away, but Harper knew better than to follow. Instead, he stayed put, surrendering to the inevitable. On the other side, 2 hours later after Woolard's escape, he managed to hijack another van from a nearby car wash. But unfortunately for him, he crashed on the interstate. His reckless escape attempt ended in a twisted wreck. This time, there was no running. Woolard was quickly cuffed and taken into custody, his spree finally over. As for Harper, he was returned to Parchman, but his story didn't end there. The conditions in Unit 32 that had driven him to escape remained unchanged. These conditions gnawed at him, pushing him to fight not just for his survival, but for the dignity of every inmate trapped in Unit 32. By 2010, after years of legal battles and mounting pressure, Unit 32 was finally closed, condemned for its inhumane conditions. Harper had become more than just an inmate. He had become a symbol of resistance against a broken system. 6 years later, Harper's first novel was published, a reflection of his life, his code, and the choices he made. Today, Roy Harper remains confined, serving out his days in Colorado, far from the Mississippi Delta, far from the swampy plains of Parchman.